that's when you want to start thinking about something that, things that are called design controls. And this is a space that, that regulators will talk about frequently in medical devices, in really any kind of medical development or product development. And what it refers to are the documentation and then any reviews along the way and path of developing your device that will define how you're developing, what you're developing, what you're judging to be a correct end product, and then how you're going to measure that and show that you hit those points. So it refers to other elements that are captured typically in a company or an entity's quality system. So that would be just an overall arching documentation that describes how they're managing elements related to several areas, and device development's one of them, but it could also be inventory control. There's other pieces in there, but specific to device development, so we're talking about procedures that people will follow that help outline how you do development, as well as address the specific elements that the design controls call for, which are listed here, and we'll get into some of them in greater depth, but inputs, outputs, reviews, verifications, validations, transfer, design changes, which would typically occur, once you've hit a point that you actually have a documented design and you need to change it. You have to capture how you're changing, why, what the justification behind the changes, how it affects your product. Potentially, if you have something commercialized, what are you going to do? Are you going to pull that product back? Are you acceptable leaving it out on the market? As well as capturing the overall design history in some form of a file that can be reviewed over the life of the product and past the life of the product. So even years after a product has been sold, if there is any need to look back at that history, that you can get at that file and understand why the product was designed in the way that it was. So in the design control space, one of the first things that regulations talk about is that you need to have a design and development plan. And it speaks to the individual elements within design control, but basically what it talks to as well, which I think is helpful in planning for design, is that generally you're starting everything with certain levels of knowledge, and that's going to give you maybe a certain level of confidence along the way of what are your chances that you're going to achieve your goal. And the design and development plan is asking you to really spell out what are the key activities that you're going to need to do specific to the device that you're trying to develop to get it to market, and ensure that the design that you commercialize with meets the intended goal of what you're trying to achieve. So, basically, by the time you start a project, you make an initial plan, and then the regulator's expectation is that you're probably going to evolve that plan over time as you get more information, as you approach, having 100% confidence that this will work. And you're going to be updating it with what you've done, as well as what you're learning you actually need to do compared to what you thought you needed to do. And having this plan documented somewhere that you could show to the FDA or that you could show to auditors is an expectation. You need to have this. So what else, would this plan be connected to? Well, first of all, they do want to understand, well, how long is it going to take you to do things? So the project management tools and approaches we use would be helpful in building out a Gantt that you could use that would explain, this is about how long we think it might take us, and these are the resources we believe we'd need to achieve these goals, that you would update as well. Although something important to recognize is that that's also pretty common to have for your overall project. And the design and development plans are really only asking for the elements that we have in this circle here. They want you to speak to design controls, an area called risk management, where you're analyzing risks, different forms of risks that your device could present to patients, to users, risks in the design itself. We'll talk a little bit about that later, as well as other elements related to where does your design live, how is it managed once you've proven the design will do what it says, how is it being manufactured. So these are the spaces that a device and development plan, design and development plan would typically focus on addressing. And then there's other elements that you need to plan for in order to commercialize. Regulatory strategy, some of that we talked about influencing some of the activities that you're going to need to address in your design controls. But you don't necessarily need to include in your D&D plan all aspects of regulatory strategy. They don't necessarily want to see, say, for instance, every set of minutes from every meeting attached to the design and development plan. That's going to speak more to what your overall submission looks like, and your regulatory person that you work with, or you're probably going to keep that in its own file, and the submission will be kept in its own file. It doesn't need to live in your plan. So while there's overlap, it's not necessarily all-encompassing. Same thing would be true for a marketing plan. While there's certain elements that the FDA needs to know around what are you saying and stating your intended uses are, what generally would your marketing literature look like to make sure that you're not potentially promising things that the product doesn't deliver. They don't necessarily need to see how you're distributing all of that to salespeople, the orders that you need to make to do that, or all of the other nuances that come in managing and determining which market are you going to position in first within this country. That's not necessarily of interest to them. But you still need to do these things and plan for them to get your product commercialized. Understanding reimbursements is another area where some of that information is going to come and influence your design. You need to hit a certain target cost. You need to know that when you're designing. You have to understand how much materials cost when you're making those choices, so you get it an end product that you can get a reimbursement for. So while some of those pieces will come in, you're still going to have somebody who's focusing on trying to solve the reimbursement problem, and that doesn't necessarily need to be described to the FDA specifically. How are they doing that? Supply chain management is another area where, again, you're selecting materials. You're going to have to figure out where you're sourcing them. The FDA will probably want to know, okay, what's in your product? How are you sourcing it? How are you managing that? But they don't necessarily need to see the contracts that get put in place or how your company is specifically managing inventory levels around that. That you need to plan for, but doesn't have to be in the design control story that gets told to the regulator. So, the other thing to consider here is we're talking about a lot of other activities. In companies, you would be bringing in a team of people that would be supporting several of these. And startups, I think, to some extent as well, and I know we have some experience in the room on this, while maybe you may end up being more involved in certain parts of these, you're still even bringing in experts to help you get through certain steps. So the point is, don't expect that if you ever end up in this space that you or one other person have to take on all of it. The idea is that there are certain people that come and play in this space and have expertise and can come and help shape different aspects. Because this is definitely a lot of different things to be thinking about all together. And typically it gets managed through with a team. So, any questions about this? Okay. So, in the design control space, when we get into the elements, the FDA has had this waterfall model that they've got a graphic on their website, which I think Cheryl had pointed out to me was dated 1997 and largely hasn't changed in that time. And I think that the reason it hasn't is because I think it's a pretty clear and simple way of showing how basically elements can cascade down into your product. And also how you can connect in a concept of ensuring that you're performing reviews at key points along the way to ensure that what you get in your medical device is what the user needed.